Good evening. Welcome to my podcast entitled The Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. Since February of 2021, I've been working hard to try to provide you content through this medium to give our viewers a bigger and better insight into educational leadership. We've interviewed leaders at the school, district, and state level in education at varying stages of the leadership cycle. A video database of sorts, in fact, has been created over the past 37 or so episodes that has been built on leadership best practices from outstanding leaders in multiple states. The goal and purpose of this show is to continue to bring amazing content to you to show leadership at its very best throughout the state and nation. I hope that this podcast has at least created a deeper understanding of the complexity of leadership at its core. And I hope it's also been inspirational and inspiring to those of you seeking to become greater servant leaders. Our initial focus thus far has been on educational leaders. And starting in 2022, we're going to look to bring content from various professions, which include but will not be limited to healthcare, business leadership, and etc. When you hear something that you like, by all means, continue to please send those comments to us. Those of you that are viewing us through the YouTube channel, please give us comments, click like, and most importantly, that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing, but it sure does help us move our content forward. Tonight is episode 37 of the Wright Experience. My guest tonight is fairly new to the superintendency, but not to the world of K-12 education. We recently met at a professional development activity for superintendents for our state leaders that both of us attended, and immediately I learned of his outstanding leadership in his new role and wanted you to have the opportunity to meet him and have him come aboard and share his successes with you. My guest tonight is Mr. Dale Cole. Mr. Dale Cole served for 10 years as a high school English teacher and football and baseball coach in Craven County, Pitt County, and Beaufort County in North Carolina. For those of you South Carolinians that are listening, Beaufort is pronounced Beaufort in North Carolina. How about that? So during this time also, he coached at Southside High School. He was a defensive coordinator in the 2002 North Carolina State Championship game, and also the 2004 North Carolina State Championship game. He also coached in 4 straight Eastern Regional Championships from 2002 until 2005. Mr. Cole has been the Beaufort County Schools Teacher of the Year runner-up and the Washington Daily News Coach of the Year. Mr. Cole also served as a middle and high school principal for 10 years in Beaufort County, North Carolina. In 2013, he was named the Wells Fargo, North Carolina Principal of the Year and the 2013 National Association of Secondary School Principals Middle Level North Carolina Principal of the Year. Mr. Cole additionally served for 2 years as a regional leadership coach for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, working with principals and school improvement teams to help chronically low-performing schools. He also served for 2 years in Hyde County Schools in North Carolina as the Director of Accountability, Career and Technical Education, and K-12 Instruction. He's married to his wife, Kim, and he has 3 children, Ty, who is 15, Delta, who is 16, and Dara, who is 19 and studying at East Carolina University in elementary education. And at this time, I'd like to welcome my friend and colleague, Mr. Dale Cole. Welcome to the Wright Experience, Mr. Cole.
Dr. Wright, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and the opportunity tonight.
All right. Now, I've been excited about this ever since I met you, to get you up here and get you to talk to us a little bit about your leadership. And you're certainly doing an amazing job already in Clay County Schools, which surprises no one that knows Dale Cole. So we're certainly thankful for that. So tell us a little bit about the Clay County School District and the innovative strategies for improvement that you begin building since your time there.
Well, first of all, Clay County, as a county, is one of the smallest counties in the state geographically. And not only that, about 2/3 of Clay County actually is uninhabited because it's part of the Nantahala National Forest or it's part of the Jackrabbit National Campground.
Okay.
And we have a pretty large lake that is right here in Clay County. We're actually on the border with Georgia. So the Georgia state line is about 5 miles from my office door. So we have Lake Chattooga, which is a huge part of the geography in our area, surrounded by mountains. It's a beautiful place. And like I said, a good chunk of the coastline on the lake has no houses because you can't buy the property. With that in mind, obviously funding can be a bit of an issue because of most school districts get their local funding from property taxes. And there's a lot of property in Clay County that people can't buy. Funding can be an issue out west, just like it is in the eastern part of the state where I grew up and where I worked. A lot of the same challenges you will find in the far west that you find in the far east. And a lot of people don't realize that the state of North Carolina goes 2 hours past Asheville, but it does. And out east, we were isolated by geography, whether it be water or just distance. And out here in the west, in Clay County, we're isolated by mountains. We have the same issues with access to high-speed internet and funding and all of that. So that's, I guess, a little bit about Clay County. But everyone that lives here, they're proud people. They're hardworking, blue-collar people. Most of our industry is in the service industry and tourism. And because a lot of people come up here from Atlanta or from Asheville and other urban areas to visit the mountains. We are very proud, obviously, of our children and their accomplishments. And we want our children here to have the same opportunities that any kid in Raleigh might have. And it is amazing the community support that we have in Clay County. That's one of the huge, I don't want to say differences, but something that really jumped out at me after my first 6 months working here in Clay County. We have a chapter of, it's called Communities for Schools here. And we actually have a coordinator for that program that it's a full-time position with benefits. The school system pays for half of it and the county commissioners pay for half of it. And her job is to align all of the different community organizations and churches and everyone else that want to make sure our students' needs are met so that they can learn. So we have one church that they focus on glasses. Like if a teacher feels like a kid has problems with their vision and they need glasses, that is the church that makes sure that that kid gets to go to the doctor and that they get a pair of glasses if they need it. There's another organization that takes care of winter coats. So if there's a kid that needs a winter coat and their family can't provide it, then Miss Waldroup is made aware of it. She goes to that group and they make it happen. And she's a member of all of their boards and she meets with them and she lets them know, hey, you spent this much money on winter coats this year. This is how many coats that bought. This is how many kids that impacted. And that's a great way to handle that, all of that, because in a lot of schools, your school counselors are the ones trying to manage all of that, and they need to be counseling kids. So that's a huge difference I've found here in Clay County, and I can't take credit for that. That was here when I got here, but it's awesome.
Sounds like you got some amazing community support and backing there. That's
we do. We absolutely do, and they make a huge difference for kids here.
All right.
Now, as far as school improvement, there are a lot of areas where we needed to make improvements. I started in November of 2019, November 1st, and then about 3 months later, COVID hit. Right. And so I've pretty much been a pandemic superintendent. And, and so there's good and bad to that. The bad is, there was no rule book to follow about how to manage it because no one else knew either, which put me on the same ground as all the other veteran superintendents around here that I work with.
Absolutely.
But the good part is it freed us up to try some stuff. I mean, because, there wasn't going to be any testing, any state testing. So it was a great time to innovate, try new things without having a fear of failure, and really challenge the status quo of what had kind of been here for probably 10 or 15 years. So we've adopted a brand new reading curriculum in K-8. We've adopted a brand new math curriculum in K-8. We've adopted a brand new math curriculum in 9-12.
Okay.
We studied and adopted the Castle standards for social emotional learning.
Okay.
We adopted the second step curriculum for social emotional learning. All of that as part of building an MTSS process, which we didn't have any sort of MTSS process when I got here. We were very behind on that, so we're working to catch up with that. So we've adopted NC Star as our school improvement planning system. We've brought all of our school improvement team planning and makeup into state compliance because it wasn't when I got here. And we really aligned things to the data at hand. And I think that's just something sort of in the past that things just weren't directed by the data. And now everybody knows that before we do anything, I'm going to be asking what the data says. And if there is no data, then my statement is going to be the first thing we need to do is develop a data system. And then we can decide what we're going to do. So we've made a lot of changes. I've been real proud of the openness and flexibility that our staff has shown. Because I know change isn't easy, but I just from day one, I preached to our staff, look, what better time to adopt new curriculum? I mean, typically your test scores are going to drop the first year that you adopt a new curriculum anyway, before they rebound as you get better at using that curriculum. Right. So if you've got a year or two where you're not going to have any test scores anyway, to me, that's the best time to adopt a new curriculum. So we just ran with it.
Yeah, we've talked to our folks also about looking at 2021 as a baseline year and building over again from that, because it's kind of unfair to compare 2021 to 18-19,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's great stuff, and it sounds like you're taking the opportunity to kind of reinvent education moving forward, which is so critical out of this pandemic. If we don't take those opportunities to reinvent education now, we probably aren't going to get another opportunity like this. So that's amazing. And
absolutely, just
for that.
Grab the bull by the horns and take this opportunity that no superintendents have ever had since they started end of course testing 20 years ago.
So you've talked to us a little bit already, Mr. Cole, about the similarities in your time as an Eastern North Carolina person, and now serving in the western part of the state. And you're fairly unique in that area. Most of the Western superintendents generally are from the West, or at least have ties to the western part of the state. But additionally, what similarities do you see in schools in the eastern part of the state as opposed to the West? And then what differences do you see that exist?
Well, I've talked about a couple of similarities. I mean, I would say that percentage-wise, as a high school principal and a district director and working for DPI in the eastern part of the state, that in general, in rural areas, about 25 to 35% of each graduating class would be university bound. Sure. And about, say 10% to 15% typically were military bound. And then and probably about, I would say 30% were planning to go straight into the workforce, and the rest were going to go to community college to earn a job certification and then go into the workforce. Very, very similar, at least here in Clay County, very similar numbers. Now, one difference obviously is diversity. Sure. I grew up and always worked in areas that were probably at least 40-40 white, African-American, 10% or so to 20% Hispanic. Somewhere right around those numbers pretty much everywhere where I've been prior to coming to Clay County. And in Clay County, I think we're 90% white. And so it's very different in that regard as far as diversity. But other than that, everything's really the same. It really is. And we have the same issues, same problems that any small rural school district has to deal with.
So speaking of rural districts, while we're on that subject, and you already touched on this a little bit, but we'll go into it a little bit deeper. Many rural districts, as we all know, suffer from connectivity issues, which we've learned during the pandemic caused challenges that many of us didn't see coming, at least to the degree that they hit us with. So what steps have your district taken, or would you like to see them take moving forward to try to combat connectivity challenges? And on top of that, what help would a district like yours need to make that happen?
Well, for one, we were already 1-to-1.
Okay, good.
Which helped tremendously.
Sure.
And that was as a result of some grants that had been written in the past and the support of our county commissioners. So we were pretty much iPads, kindergarten through third grade, and then we were Chromebooks from fourth grade up. And we have since pushed Chromebooks down into third grade. And we still have iPads in K2 because we now have a brand new primary school that opened last December. That's pre-K through 2. Yes, absolutely. And that was through a needs-based grant from the lottery, from the North Carolina lottery. So it's been a great addition. It's given the folks in our community a chance to see what a brand new school built to modern code looks like. Right. Which has really opened their eyes, I think, to our other schools and how things can be. And so I hope that momentum will continue. But we adopted Seesaw as our learning management system in pre-K through 2, just because we thought it was a better fit, sort of an online portfolio system where kids could upload their work and the parents could see it. But then in grades 3 through 12, which is on the main campus, and with everyone having Chromebooks, Google Classroom was adopted as our learning management system there because it's free. So it was very affordable for us. But that created some consistency at the two schools. We have a tremendous 3-man technology team here in Clay County. And so we already had some really fast internet, some great infrastructure here on campus. So it was really the students when we were quarantined or when we had to shut schools down. We still had when it first started, when schools were shut down, we probably had about 30 to 40% of our kids didn't have access to internet at home. Because we worked out some deals with Verizon and AT&T to get hotspots for our students and our staff members, we were able to cut that down and pretty much we got it down to sort of the final mile students, which was about 5% of our population that didn't even have a cell signal. So a hotspot wouldn't do them any good. Right. And for those, we had to do paper packets, which was a tremendous amount of work for our teachers, which led our board to make the decision for this school year that we would contract out to a third party all parents that chose fully remote instruction, that we would not ask our teachers to do that again this year. Oh, wow. So we contracted with a third party company. We had about 40 kids whose parents chose for them to be fully remote at the beginning of the year. Our school board only approved it for one semester. So we contracted with a third party company, Edminum, to provide that instruction with their teachers for this semester. But I don't think our board's going to approve that for spring semester. So those kids will be coming back.
Coming back to your in-person learning. That's
yes. Awesome. And really, I'm really interested to see how the SpaceX systems work in Hyde County and Swain County. Swain County's, right almost next door to us.
Okay.
Because if it solves their last mile internet connectivity issues, then I'm hopeful that the state will dump some money into that, and that'll be the problem solver for our final mile students.
Yeah, well, Steve Basnight down on this end, he's been championing that effort, and very good project. And I think we all are waiting to see how well that's going to work in Hyde. Because if it'll work in Hyde, it'll probably work just about anywhere.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Because of their dynamics, for sure. And you mentioned the needs-based grant, and I'm right there with you. We just opened in the Hosky Elementary School here in town, and we're very proud of that. We would not have been able to get had it not been for that need-based grant. So, and you're right. It's an opportunity for us to showcase what 21st century learning really needs to look like in terms of facilities and just the amazing things that you can do.
Yeah, I really feel
facilities.
I really feel like that finally in the last couple of years,
right,
our state has been moving towards making some I think stronger investments in public education that are necessary. That I'll be honest with you, I didn't feel like were being made 5 to 10 years ago, and I love in the new budget that they have provided state funding for a local supplement for 95 or no 100 and like 110 of the counties, or not counties but districts,
right.
So that we can provide a local supplement and try to compete with the larger counties for staff. That's going to help us tremendously because we didn't have any local supplement at all. So, and we actually have to compete with Georgia, and Georgia pays more, so that's going to help us out a lot.
Yeah, these border counties, we border Virginia, so same kind of thing. And you're right. Anytime particularly if you're a border county and you can't offer the same kinds of pay as others, that hurts you. Absolutely. So, Mr. Cole, what advice would you give to a beginning teacher who may have only experienced life during the pandemic about a career in education?
Well, first of all, I would say life is going to get a lot easier, I think, in a couple of years at least, hopefully at the most, when you can focus on instruction face-to-face in your class as much as possible. I'll be honest, that is a lot easier. But I think, again, with our brand new teachers, they've really had the opportunity to learn personalization. And so I think that is to their benefit.
Right.
And your picture just went blank. So.
Okay, I'm back.
There you go.
I'm back. Yeah,
but yeah,
absolutely. That's.
I think they have gotten a crash course in personalization and providing instruction through multiple modes and multiple platforms, and that's going to be to their benefit, honestly. And because many times I felt like I saw a larger percentage of our most veteran teachers struggled with that more than our first year teachers. And,
absolutely.
So. I'm looking forward to see what they accomplish once things get easier for them.
Exactly. So what have you enjoyed most about the superintendency thus far? 2 years into it.
So in Clay County, I mean, we have, I think the last time I checked, we have 1,275 students.
Okay.
And you know what, and obviously this is my first superintendency. I'm learning the job as I go. But what I guess have really enjoyed about being superintendent in Clay County is that I still almost feel like a principal. Yeah. I still get to see and know the kids. I was kind of looking around earlier, but we had a middle school basketball game tonight, and there was a kid whose parent never showed to pick him up. And when you had your countdown on for this podcast, he came and knocked on my door to see if he could come use my phone to call his mom. And I was kind of scrambling to try to get that worked out. And he's been sitting here in my office listening to this podcast, sort of laughing at me since we started. He just walked out. I guess his mom pulled up. So just being able to have the day-to-day interaction with students, I still really crave that. And so I feel like the larger district you're in, the harder that is. And so it's been really good for me because I feel like I'm almost like the head principal of a big school, you know? And so that's been great. But I've enjoyed learning about the politics and expectations of the western part of the state, and just how they do things. And I love getting out on the weekends and just driving around. And I'm still, I guess, a little bit in awe of where I live, even now after 2 years. So it's just all been a great experience for me. I couldn't really ask for anything more.
Great, outstanding. So you've served, Mr. Cole, as a successful educator and coach. How do you believe that's prepared you to lead a school district?
Well, I mean, I like to think I was pretty successful as a teacher and a coach. I used to tell people all the time, you know, my principals tended not to say a whole lot to me, but I always had strong evaluations. And during those years, the only state tested subject was ninth grade English, and I taught all the ninth graders. So that tells me all I need to know about what my principals thought about my teaching ability.
Right. That's right.
They had to get through me to get to 10th grade, you know, and I like to think that was because I don't know, just as a coach, I guess I learned early on that it didn't matter what you knew until you had a relationship with kids.
That's right.
You can't coach a kid until they're willing to listen to you, and they're not willing to listen to you until you have a relationship with them and they know you care, and that it's not about you, that it's about them, that you want them to do well. And once you build up that trust account with them, then they'll run through a wall for you. And it's the same way really in the classroom. You know, it has to be about them. It can't be about you. And you've got to start by building relationships and being able to laugh at yourself. You know, don't get bent out of shape the first time a kid gets mad and says something that they shouldn't. Cut them some slack, but hold them accountable at the same time. And just kind of have a sense of humor and build relationships first. I learned that early on. But then I'm also very detail oriented as a coach and as a teacher. I believe that everything starts with the fundamentals, and you're not going to be able to accomplish anything until you master the fundamentals, and that you're never done mastering the fundamentals. You always have to circle back and circle back and circle back. And so I did that in the classroom, and I did that on the football field. And, you know, to me, they were the same thing. When I went to college, I did not plan to be a teacher. My old high school football coach, Dwayne Kellum, gave me a call and asked me if I'd be willing to come and volunteer coach with him. And I played quarterback for him for 4 years in high school. I never played a down of defense. Okay. And the funny thing is, I coached football for 10 years in high school, and I never coached a down of offense. All I ever coached was defense. So
I love that.
So, you know, I loved coaching so much that I was like, I got to figure out a way to do this to make a living. And I always had a gift when it came to reading, and I loved reading stories, and I loved acting stories out, and the English just came naturally to me. And I had a lot of help along the way. I was fortunate to have really strong mentors in the classroom and on the football field, and success followed that, you know. And so now I really feel like my most important job is to teach principals how to be good principals. And if I do that, then I'm going to look really good, you know. And so that's really how I spend a lot of my time, is working with my leadership team of principals and assistant principals and counselors. Because I feel like if they do a fantastic job at the school level, my job's going to be really easy.
Mhm. Mhm. So speaking of mentors and you being a mentor, so what things and people do you depend on to stay relevant and current as a leader? Talk about books, if there are some, or publications, or people that you depend on.
Well, you're a fool if you don't set up relationships with people that do what you do every day.
That's right. That's right.
So that's first of all. It was like that as a football coach. There's a reason why they had an annual conference for football coaches, so they could all sit down. And once they were done lying after the first 15 minutes, then they would actually start sharing stuff that helped everybody out and allowed the game to progress.
Right.
It was the same way when I was a teacher and I went to a teaching conference. Half the time it wasn't the presentations. It was the conversations I had with the people in between the presentations where I learned a lot of great stuff, and I made connections with people that I could call and ask when I needed help.
Right.
Same thing as a principal. And, in my work at DPI was really building connections between principals and doing that. So for me, social media was a way to elevate that. I mean, very early on, I started with a Twitter account, and I started out kind of like everybody else. So if I didn't post anything, I didn't share anything. I found people to follow who were sharing things that I wanted to learn more about,
Right.
and then I learned kind of how to use it and get that algorithm to send information to me that I wanted. And then I started sharing as I got more comfortable with the platform. So I've used social media, Facebook groups, and of course, reading books that I would pick up here and there that people would suggest to me. But I think mainly through our superintendent training sessions,
Sure.
through our conferences, and then through Twitter. Twitter allows me to follow superintendents all across the nation and learn from everyone. So that's, I think, how I keep a growth mindset and keep growing.
And so the key point in there is, although you're a learning leader, you're still in learning mode, and we've got to always stay in that learning mode, no matter what, and build the networks and build the folks that you can call when you got a problem and just need to try to get some help to sort it out and things of that nature. So,
Dr. Wright, you know the reality
absolutely.
is that when you feel like you've got it all figured out and you don't need to collaborate with anybody anymore to learn more, it's time to leave.
It's time to do something else. That's
It's
exactly
time
right.
to do something because you are clearly wrong and delusional.
Exactly. That is exactly right. That's exactly right. Mr. Cole, that's pretty much exhausted my questions. Anything else that I've left off that you might want to share with our audience at this time?
No.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is I think that it matters more and more for everybody to get on board with supporting public schools,
Absolutely.
especially in North Carolina. I worry about what I see at the state level, where I see funds going and what policies I see changing, and how other areas don't have the same accountability that we do. And I still believe, we hear the founding fathers quoted all the time, but then nobody wants to talk about the fact that they were the ones that said that a strong public education and an opportunity for that for everyone is the bedrock of the nation, of democracy. So let's not forget that. And that public schools take everybody, and we've got the best teachers in the world. And we all need to continue to improve, but that requires funding,
Right.
and people like to say you can't throw money at a problem to fix it, and you can't, but you do need money. And you need investment. Everything needs investment if we want to improve. So I hope people continue to go online and watch things like this podcast and continue to talk and contact their representatives to advocate for public education.
I could not have said it better myself. You sound like me. Now, that's great stuff, though. We need that, and as you said, there's no better time to advocate for public education and what's needed We don't need people to go and close the doors now. Those doors have got to be open to give us more opportunities to be successful. So I absolutely agree with that. Mr. Cole, if you'll hold on with me for just a minute, we'll come back and close things out.
All right.
Next Thursday, of course, will be Thanksgiving Day, and so we will not have a podcast next week. I do, however, want to take another opportunity to just say thank you to all of you who have been supporting this podcast. We started this back in February, and I'm extremely grateful for the amazing responses that I continue to receive. And please, by all means, keep those coming. 2 weeks from now, on December 3rd, my guest will be December 2nd, my guest will be Dr. Joe Farrell, who is the superintendent of Camden County Schools in North Carolina. He and Dr. Cole's districts are just about as far away from each other as you can get. Dr. Farrell's district in Camden County is in the eastern part of the state of North Carolina, and we're certainly looking forward to that experience as well. Mr. Cole, I just want to thank you so very, very much, my friend, for taking this opportunity to be a part of this show. Your amazing insight and comments to leadership. I think all of us can see that you are an amazing leader, and we look forward to continuing to following your leadership. And I also want to continue to learn from you and all the amazing things that you're doing in Clay County to benefit students. They're certainly fortunate to have you as a leader. And just thank you for being a part of this podcast. And we look forward to having you back on at a later date. This forum is open anytime you need it to share the wonderful things that are going on in Clay County.
Dr. Wright, I appreciate that. It's been fun. And you referred to me as Dr. Cole a little earlier, but one day I hope to be smart enough to be able to go get my doctorate, but I don't have it just yet.
Oh, well, you'll get there. You'll get there.
Well, thank you. And Joe will be he'll be a great interview too. He's a great guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you. And to the Wright Experience audience, thank you for watching, and good evening.